I didn't want to sit here on the last stream of the year and just like play Master Duel. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to talk about how 2022 went for me as a content creator, me as a player, but also just the game in general mostly. I don't want to sit here and talk about myself for a while. Just like how we as a community experienced Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2022, both the TCG and Master Duel, because Master Duel was a big addition to the game in 2022. You can't really deny that, even if some people still play Master Duel and some people don't because they were disappointed by it. I feel like it was a big deal for everyone when it came out. Like some people were disappointed by it, some people like it, some people still play it, some people only started playing because of Master Duel. And that's just some stuff I want to recap on, and I also want to recap on a little bit of what happened in the TCG, you know, how the formats were, which kind of products were released, and just in general what we liked and what we didn't like about the year, and what we expect from 2023. And we're just gonna have a little bit of a discussion, so like feel free to engage in chat, because this is really gonna be what it's about. I don't want to just sit here and tell you what I think about the stuff that would happen, but I'm genuinely curious to see what people in chat thought about the stuff this year, because if there's one thing that I learned about the community as I started streaming, is that there's like a lot of different perspectives on a lot of things. People are enjoying Yu-Gi-Oh! In very, very different ways. Like I'm playing it very competitively, both in the TCG and in Master Duel. Then there's some people who play it very casually. There's people in between. There's people who only play at home. There's people who only play at locals. There's people who go to regionals occasionally. Then there's people like me who go to almost every big event. And I found that specific aspect of the game very interesting, because that is something I haven't really experienced before, because before I started content creation, it was mostly just me being active only in my own sort of circle, right? Only in the competitive scene. Basically, I didn't really have much of an insight into the mind of casual players, which has, I think, changed with content creation. And I think it's helped me a lot in discussions to acknowledge and understand the point, or like the arguments of people and like where they're coming from, which I thought was very interesting. And I think it would help in Yu-Gi-Oh! Discussions if we would all understand that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community is not all the same people, and not everyone is enjoying the game in the same way as we do. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say before we go into the discussion. And so 2022 as a year started when everyone was still kind of in that like COVID situation, right? There was not much going on. Some people played remote Yu-Gi-Oh! Some people didn't. I was personally one of the people that did not participate in any remote duel, because it just, for me as someone who loves going to tournaments and like sit across from my opponent and whatnot, I did not enjoy the idea of playing remote duels. But I was still happy that they existed, because people that wanted to play got to play. That was a very good thing, I believe. Of course, it had its own set of problems, no doubt, 100%. But, you know, it is what it is. At least the game continued. Also, yeah, as I'm seeing in chat right now, it got some people back into the game because they maybe didn't have the means or the time to travel to events, right? And they just had now there was this way to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! At your desk at home, right? And so like maybe that is one of the reasons why the tournament scene is booming right now, because that's something like, if we want to talk about 2022, the return to real life events, they were huge. They were huge. We've had 2 YCSs in Europe, and both of those YCSs were, I think, back to back the biggest YCSs we've had, I think, ever in Europe, if you ignore YCS Düsseldorf back then, which was split into 2 parts because of how many people attended. Just a few weeks ago, I attended the biggest European regional ever that we had in Frankfurt, which I think it was 730 people, which we've never had before. Even I think we haven't had something that was close to that. So with the return to IRL events, I don't know what the reason was. It was probably a combination of reasons, of Master Duel, of COVID bringing people back into the game. But just looking at the sheer numbers, the game has been booming in 2022, which makes me happy. It makes me happy. But before we talk about the tournaments in TCG, I think we have to talk about Master Duel just a little bit, because that was the first thing of the year. I feel like the big drop was Master Duel. It was what got me back into the game, and it was also what got me into streaming. So the only reason I'm sitting here here creating content to so many of you, which by the way, thank you for being here. We're going to talk about more of that later. Master Duel. That's what started like a lot for everyone this year, especially for me. I started playing again. I started streaming. I had a lot of fun with Master Duel in the beginning, despite some of its problems. The problems are as follows. When the game dropped, I feel like some people were like, oh, they're going to fix this over time. But I think by now it's pretty clear that those things are not going to change anytime soon. And we're going to talk about those. But like when the game dropped, it dropped with a lot of people were disappointed by some of these things, me included, even though my view on some of these things have changed. And some of you might not even be aware of some of those changes if you're only playing Master Duel. It's not about any specific deck. No, it's not about any specific deck or format. It is mostly because Master Duel had a different ban list from both the TCG and the OCG, and it had or still has a different card pool. What that means is that they are currently, as it stands, a couple of months behind the card pool of the current TCG format, right? We don't have Sprite yet, we don't have Tier Limits yet, even though both of those decks have been out in the TCG for like 5 months. The Master Duel card pool is behind, and the Master Duel ban list is also very different, right? In the beginning, it was mostly Maxi that was different and a couple of other things, but like by now, they've actually completely differentiated themselves from the TCG and the OCG with a completely different ban list. And when Master Duel first came out, I was disappointed by that. The biggest deal, what it was for me as a TCG player, was that it meant that I cannot, and I still cannot, use Master Duel to play test for the TCG. I cannot do it. I cannot, or also just content creation for the TCG. I cannot use Master Duel as a platform, which I would like to do. I would like to use Master Duel for my TCG content, but I unfortunately cannot because it just doesn't have the cards, and the format is different because the card pool is different and the ban list is different. And for me, that is something that is very unfortunate on the one side, especially because like Omni says in the chat right now, they did announce Master Duel as a way to play TCG and OCG. I remember that specific phrasing in one of the trailers or teasers that they said, play Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG and OCG, and up until this point, almost 1 year into Master Duel, and we still have no way to actually play TCG or OCG, or even old formats for that matter. Like basically, Master Duel only has its own format, which in its own right actually isn't bad, right? And that's what I wanted to get at next, is like the first time I actually felt good about Master Duel being different was just this month, when I felt like after the last TCG ban list, which we're also going to talk about in a bit, but after that happened, I felt a little bit discouraged to stream TCG. If you may have noticed this in the last couple of weeks, we've still been doing a little bit of TCG, but we've been doing less simply because I have been enjoying the Master Duel format a bit more rather than the TCG format, especially from a content creator perspective, because what am I going to do? There's a limited amount of content you can create for Tier Limit format. And so this time around, it was actually a big advantage that Master Duel was a little bit different, right? It was a little bit different, and that gave me different options, right? It didn't feel like the exact same game, but just on the screen. So it was cool. Would I still like Master Duel to have the current card pool and ban list? If not as the primary like ranked format, but just as something you can like play with friends or something else, or like have a separate ladder? Yes, I would really like the TCG to be in Master Duel in some way, shape, or form. I would love to use Master Duel as the platform to create TCG content. I would absolutely prefer that. We just expected something different and we got Master Duel. I don't think Master Duel is bad at all. They mismanaged expectations and thus people expected something different. Now, Master Duel in itself, I enjoy Master Duel. It's cool. Sometimes as a TCG player, I feel a little bit bored by the fact that we get decks that have been already almost solved or like have been played months ago, but Overall, I don't mind having a secondary option that has a little bit different of a format, because at the end of the day, the game is the same. It's Yu-Gi-Oh, right? The game is Yu-Gi-Oh, just the format is different, right? And sometimes there's going to be times where the TCG format is better and you're going to play TCG. Sometimes Master Duel format is going to be more fun, like in the last 2 weeks, and we're going to play more Master Duel. It's fine. I don't mind having a secondary option. I am still disappointed by the fact that I don't have a TCG simulator. That's still very annoying for me, but it is what it is. We're going to make do with it. As Master Duel stands, I don't hate it. I actually think it's cool every once in a while. Another thing about Master Duel that is not going to be an issue for a lot of people, right? For some people, it's going to be an issue. For some people, it won't be. But it does not currently have any real form of competition. The official kind, right? The game has been out for 11 months, I want to say, roughly, pretty much. There's no in-game leaderboard. There's not even a quote-unquote highest rank to achieve. There is Diamond 1, but there's nothing like a legend rank in other games, or a King of Games even in Duel Links. We don't have it. We don't have it yet. People were saying, oh, it's going to be out soon when it released. They were like, give them a couple months. But now it's been 11 months. Are we going to get it eventually? I think so. It's still kind of weird and dumb that this took so long. We did not have a World Championship in 2022. I hope and I think that Master Duel will be part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship in 2023, which is also, I guess that leads us into what do we expect for 2023 from Master Duel. In 2023, I just want more competition. I just want official competition. Yes, we've gotten the Challenger Cups now, which is very cool. I really enjoy the Challenger Cups. If you don't know what the Challenger Cups are and you're from Europe, it's basically Konami Europe teaming up with content creators to host tournaments with some nice official prizing, which also includes myself. I will also be hosting Challenger Cups soon, and that's a great thing. Both to play and to host feels like a very cool thing. It is not part of a bigger like tournament system though at this point, right? It is not a replacement for like what YCS's European Championships or a World Championship offer for a game to a competitive player at least. I can understand if a casual player doesn't mind this particular issue. For me personally, as a competitive player, I would really like to see more competition. And if Master Duel is part of the 2023 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championships, which I think it will be, I hope it will be, I hope that they give us a cool way to qualify that is not the Duelist Cup, although I'm afraid that will be the case. We'll see. And then, you know, I'll always try my best to qualify for the TCG World Championship, but I'm also aware that that might not always be possible. If there's a way to qualify for the Master Duel World Championship, I will try, I will grind, I will see if it's good. I hope they come up with a good system. I also really hope though, I really hope that they give us something else that is not the World Championship. I feel like the World Championship is great and everything, but I really hope we get more than just one event per year to look forward to in Master Duel. Something that is similar to a YCS in-game. It is possible, absolutely. It's been done in, for example, Legends of Runeterra. They had every couple months, they had big in-game tournaments that had amazing prize pools and coverage and whatnot. It is possible, and I'm really hoping we can get something like that in Master Duel as well. That's what I feel like about Master Duel. Like, I'm gonna be honest, in the first couple months, I was disappointed with it after a while, but I have changed my mind on that a decent amount. Like, I'm a fan of Master Duel. I just think they could do better, and I hope they will. And that is my take on Master Duel 2022-2023. Now, the bigger deal for myself in this year, even bigger than Master Duel, was obviously the return of IRL events and the return of the TCG. I returned to the TCG pretty much instantly when IRL events started, which I wasn't sure if I was going to. Over the last 2 years, I didn't plan to. But it was a combination of factors. It was basically, first of all, when events started over in the US and people went to tournaments again, and, you know, I saw the coverage and all that kind of stuff. It was just so hard for me to stay away. It was just so hard for me to just like be like, yeah, I'm not gonna go to tournaments. It was just basically, it was doomed from the get-go pretty much. In addition to, at the time, I was not very fond of Master Duel because I felt like it was weird that was different. It was best of one. It didn't have competition. And I'm a person, I need competition, and Master Duel didn't have it. So I needed the TCG basically. And I'm happy that I'm very happy that I started doing TCG as well, because especially at the time, it was also just a little bit more enjoyable, I feel like, to play the TCG in the beginning, get back into it. Also, creating content for it felt like a lot more natural than Master Duel content. And so relatively in the beginning of my also YouTube channel, I started pretty much making TCG content almost exclusively for a while, for a couple months, when I got into the game again. And the first event for me personally was Nationals. German Nationals was my first event in years, which I wish we could just not talk about Nationals, but we have to talk about the Nationals format if we want to recap 2022. Now, I don't know how many of you here are Master Duel players or TCG players exclusively. I don't know how many know what I'm even talking about here. The Nationals format was something else. Now, for me personally, it was rough. And I've talked about this a lot before, but I'm going to talk about it one last time in 2022. It might be recency bias, but I think this year's national format was genuinely my least favorite format of all time. And now, hear me out. On the other hand, I want to say that I totally understand that a lot of people have a different opinion on this topic. A lot of people liked this format for specific reasons that we're going to talk about, because the format was very, very diverse. And that's very often a lot of people think that diversity in a format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a good thing. And for some people, it is. For some people that like to have different options or like to have a very diverse experience when they go to a tournament and play against a lot of different decks, Nationals format was great because it did have a lot of different decks. Now, I'm going to tell you why I personally did not enjoy the Nationals format from a competitive standpoint, and that's for multiple reasons. The format was so diverse that from a competitive standpoint, it was very much unpredictable of what you're going to have to face and how are you going to beat that? Because that's really what tournament preparation is all about, is like thinking about, okay, what am I going to play against at this tournament and how am I going to beat it and how can I adjust my deck to do that? If you're literally, and this is not over exaggeration, if you had to prepare for 10 or 11 rounds of Swiss in the Nationals format, you had to expect 9 or 10 different decks, literally. Because there was, top of my head, Despia, Sword Soul, Adventure Synchro, Eldritch, Drytron, Flunder, Libromancer, Punk Therion, ABC Therion, Dragon Link. There were so many different decks to prepare for. And literally all of the decks that I just mentioned, Sun Avalon, all of the decks that I just mentioned were not like rogue decks that you should be prepared for just in case. No, all of those decks saw play. Marincess, Salamangreat, Mathmech wasn't out yet, I think. Adignister though. All of those decks were decks that you realistically played against. And not only that, like a lot of those decks also had a lot of mechanics that I don't enjoy. Like Sword Soul was a fair deck on the surface, but it really thrived by using cards like Anti-Spell, D-Barrier, Rivalry, Floodgates basically. Flunder was a Floodgate deck. Drytron tried to lock you out of the game. Adventure decks tried to Scythe lock you. It was just 10 different flavors of Floodgates and being locked out of the game, and you couldn't really prepare for any of it, because if you over prepared for one matchup, you would suck against the others, because they were also so different in how they function. Like hand traps were really strong against Despia, for example, and Flunder, but hand traps were almost pointless against adventure decks. Like you needed so many of them, and then you would end up bricking in other matchups where hand traps weren't as good. You play against Eldritch and all of your hand traps are dead all of a sudden, so on and so forth. Like you get what I'm saying, right? I think even if you're a casual or more casual oriented player, you can understand why from a competitive standpoint that kind of format was very frustrating. At the same time, I understand how for casual players it was very enjoyable, right? And so just like for me personally, that format was one of the worst of all that I've ever played. And I've played all of them pretty much since 2006 or 5. This might be because I'm forgetting some things that were really bad, but I actually don't think so. This might be a coincidence or not, but it was the first German national that I did not make top 64 since I think 2012. Not meant to be a flex because it's German nationals, but I did not even make day 2 at German nationals this year. I played Libromancer, which I don't think was the best deck looking back at it. I don't blame myself for picking it though, because I think it was fun. I think it was a cool deck. I still believe Libromancers are good, or like were good in that format. I don't think they were the best, but I liked it. I was just overwhelmed by the issues that I just mentioned. I sat there at German Nationals on the Saturday morning, not knowing what I was going to play. I had like multiple decks available and I just picked Libromancer like 10 minutes before submission closed. And I didn't do well with it. On the one hand, because I didn't prepare enough or well enough. On the other hand, because I genuinely think preparing for that event was exceptionally hard, if not even impossible. Day one, 8 or 9 rounds, I ended up playing 7 different decks. The only deck I played twice was Sword Soul. I played against Salad, I played against Adventure Synchro, I played against Adventure Eldritch, I played against Flunder, I played against Sword Soul, 2 of them. I played against 1 Despia. It was a mess. It was a complete and utter mess. I played against Mystic Mindburn. It was out of this world weird. I've never had a tournament experience that bad. I'm not only blaming the format, I think I also didn't play my best on that weekend, which for me personally was very frustrating because it was my first big event back after 2019. And I was really hoping to do well and I didn't, but it was due to some factors that I could work on. And luckily that all changed a couple months after that, because I don't remember the exact order of releases, but then there was Power of the Elements, which for me, because of the aforementioned reasons, Power of the Elements was by far my favorite set of the year. And in my opinion, it saved Yu-Gi-Oh! If we had to play the jungle of decks that we had before Power of the Elements for the next couple months, I would absolutely not have enjoyed the game for the next couple of months. Specifically because it solved that problem of so many different decks being viable, right? Because it introduced Sprite and Tier, and we finally had 2 decks that were just better than everything else, so it was finally possible to prepare for events again. It was finally possible to freaking sit down and be like, okay, this is how Sprite works, this is how Tier works, I can prepare for this, I can build a deck list that counters those decks, I can do well at the next event. And that's what happened. I think, in my opinion, I brought a very, very good list to the European Championship. You remember the Beat Cop Mystic Mind Sprite deck?
That's the thing, like a deck that is built to go second. Like when it was Sky Striker, the consistency is there. When it's Sprite, it might be a little risky, but this is the play that we were considering. Herman is also using the card, and this is one of the strategies that allowed Joshua to even enter this top. This is a devastating thing, and pretty much Herman wouldn't be able to have many outs to this. As you can read, essentially the Beat Cop puts a patrol counter on the mine, so you'd need to destroy it twice, and this is very tough to do. And yeah, you can see this is quite enough, and Joshua takes the game 1 due to the Beat Cop plus Mystic Mind combo.
I thought it was a very good deck. We worked hard on it, and it paid off. I ended up getting top 8 at the European Championship. I was very happy with that performance, although I was really hoping to take it all the way, but it is what it is. It is a card game at the end of the day. Can't win every time. And that was very good, and it was very enjoyable for me to finally be able to have deck building be relevant again, because it didn't feel like that before Power of the Elements. It felt like deck building was just not really a thing, right? It's just like you pick one of those, it builds itself because it's so standard, and then you just roll with it. And then that changed with Power of the Elements. And so, yeah. I'm looking mostly at Europe now because I don't actually remember what kind of events happened in North America. I am not 100% sure. I don't want to go event by event because I'm surely going to forget something. But for us, after Runic released, of course, was YCS Utrecht, which your boy won, which felt unreal.
Impermanence on the Sprite Elf. Carrot negates it. Elf was tributed. Elf can resolve. And there is the timeout. So, is there any chance? Red Resonator is summoned, and Joshua Schmidt is the next YCS champion of Utrecht!
Out of my 3 YCS wins, YCS Utrecht I think is my favorite. It's hard because of course the other ones feel really, really good, but to win a YCS while being a content creator felt amazing. It almost felt like a community win. I'm no longer just myself, because if I go to tournaments, I have way more people come up to me, say hi, and be like, I like your content and whatnot. And proving that you can be a Yu-Gi-Oh content creator and still do well at tournaments was really, really nice, because it was the first impression that people always have is like, oh, how can you make good content and still be good at Yu-Gi-Oh, or like play the game at competitive level? Because you're going to like give away all the good things. You're going to give away the text, and you're going to explain people how the game works. It's going to put you at such a disadvantage or whatever. And doing so well at YCS Utrecht was like the one moment where I realized that it's not like that. It's completely not like that, because being a Yu-Gi-Oh content creator is actually not a disadvantage. It's an advantage, if anything, because it allows me to spend so much time with the game that I would otherwise never be able to do, right? I would never be able to spend as much time playing Yu-Gi-Oh as I am right now, because I'm a full-time Yu-Gi-Oh creator now, and I'm very thankful for that. Even though, of course, it is true that some things I cannot talk about on stream, like the one where I found Beat Cop Mystic Mine, right? Well, the one where I found Beat Cop Mystic Mine, I could not show that on stream, because if I did, people would be prepared for it and it wouldn't work, right? I feel like people understand that. And I think I'm very happy about how how my community specifically, how you guys have developed, because I feel like we both mutually understand that type of stuff, right? We have people every once in a while in chat being like, oh, what are you going to play at the next YCS? But most of the time people understand that I'm not here to spoon feed you the exact deck list / deck that you should play at the next YCS, right? For the most part, I help you guys prepare as much as you guys help me prepare, right? I help you guys by answering your questions that are not, what is your deck list? What are you playing, right? All the other questions I'm gonna give you my opinion on, right? You guys help me by enabling me to be a full-time content creator, which allows me to spend a lot of time playing the game. And even if there's a couple things that I cannot show on stream, like my exact deck list or certain tech cards, being able to play the decks, learn Tearlament, learn Sprite on stream, for example, like spend a lot of time looking at new cards, looking at rogue decks, looking at like meta decks, playing meta decks, even if it's with standard lists, is very, very good practice. I keep telling you guys that for practice, you don't have to have the completely teched out deck list. You don't have to have the best deck in the room. For testing, for preparation purposes, it's absolutely fine to use a standard deck to net deck someone, whatever. When you're learning, that doesn't matter, right? And that applies not just to you, that applies to me as well. Like, it is helpful for me to play a standard as hell Tearlament deck or a standard as hell Sprite deck, because it lets me understand the format, lets me understand the deck. It's very good practice regardless. I think that is one of the reasons why the tournaments that I've been going to this year, after I've turned into a full-time content creator, have gone so well, is simply because I have a lot of exposure to the game. Thanks to streaming, I know exactly what's going on. We watch a lot of deck profiles that I would otherwise probably not watch in my free time. If I was working another job, I would not have the time to do all that. So as much as you guys are benefiting from it, I also benefit from the fact that I am a content creator in that sense. That was a very cool learning for me, because I'm very happy about that, because it means that I don't have to stop playing competitively just to create content. It doesn't actually impact my performance at all, which is very cool. What was your job before doing content? I finished university this year. It was basically, when did I finish uni? Like 4 months ago, 5 months ago. I started streaming while I was in my last semester. I studied software engineering, for anyone curious. Towards the end of university, streaming was already going so well, it was possible to go full time on it. And so I finished university, and instead of getting a job in the software engineering field, I decided to go full time in content creation instead. To be clear, I make enough money. I'm happy with what I make, but I make less than what I would make as a software engineer. But I'm accepting that very willingly, because I enjoy my job a lot more right now than I think I would as a software engineer. Like, I wouldn't hate being a software engineer. I actually enjoy it quite a lot, programming and stuff like that. But I think I enjoyed this more. It never felt like a big risk, because like I said, it started while I was still in uni, and then after a couple months, the support was very overwhelming. So it never felt like it was a big risk. At this point still, I'm like I'm still looking into how I can grow the channel, how I can grow the YouTube channel as well, to make it a very stable income, to like not depend on, I don't know, like gift subs here and there. It is something for me to get used to, right? Is like being self-employed, being a streamer and whatnot. It has its advantages, it has its disadvantages, right? Like, for example, what I make each month is totally dependent on how much I stream and how well my streams do. For example, I've had months after YCS Utrecht, it's been like an insane couple of streams where we hit like, I think 1,100 subs or something, which was insane for a streamer that has been like live for I don't know how many months at that point. Like, it was like 7 months or 8 months. It was unreal, right? And of course, the months after, we've lost a lot of those subscribers, which is a very natural thing, but it didn't feel good, of course. It didn't feel good, but it's something I have to learn how to deal with, because at the end of the day, my streams are still doing very well. I'm still very happy with everyone being here, even if it's not the 1,000 people we had after I won YCS Utrecht, but that's just something very natural. It's very normal. I don't actually mind it. It is just something I need to learn to deal with, or I need to win YCSs more often. Yes, true. Now, that was just YCS Utrecht. After YCS Utrecht, there was some stuff released, but most importantly, we had Darkwing Blast and Magnificent Mavens. In a 2022 year review, we cannot skip, as much as I would like to, we cannot skip Darkwing Blast and Magnificent Mavens. Now, Darkwing Blast was a set that I liked a decent amount. There is some stuff in Darkwing Blast that I don't love. Like, for example, I think Magnamood is a little bit too strong. I personally like Fenrir. I'm not opposed to Fenrir. I like Fenrir a lot. How did I call it back in the day? I think Darkwing Blast I called like the Power of the Elements format DLC, right? It was just kind of like, okay, Power of the Elements format happened. They banned Ronin Toden, which, by the way, yeah, rip Ronin. Don't forget. We never forget. Oh, there's another banned card down here. There's another banned card. Oh. We've been hit right in the heart. We lost Ronin Toden. A minute of silence. Then it was like, okay, the dust has settled. Like, after YCS Utrecht, it was pretty clear that in post Power of the Elements, post Tactical Masters, Runic Sprite was by far the best deck. It was not close. It was not close. Like, Tearlaments was good. You could play Tearlament, no problem if you wanted to, but Runic Sprite was the shit. Like, that deck was so good. I was happy when Darkwing Blast came out, because it was kind of like that breath of fresh air into a format that, without changing it completely, because I didn't feel like that would have been warranted. It was not warranted to completely change from Sprite and Tier yet, because, you know, that was a fine format, right? It was a fine format. Sprite and Tier, I personally liked it. It was not very diverse, but I personally think that formats with very few decks can be very healthy and very good if those decks are good decks for the game. And I think Sprite and Tier were both relatively healthy, because Tier on the one hand was like relatively easy to counter and didn't put up any insane like negates and whatnot, and Sprite was the one that was super consistent, had negates with Toad, but then Ronin got banned, and then Sprite was just kind of like a good engine but didn't have anything super broken about it. The ceiling was not that high because they were all small and they had advantage, but you know, it was not time for Sprite and Tier format to end. And so I was very happy that Darkwing Blast didn't end the format of Sprite and Tier, but rather just added a couple of things into the mix, right? Fenrir, Bestials, Rule Kalos, Sprint. Overall, I would say Darkwing Blast had mostly a buff to Tearlaments, not as much to Sprite, but Runic Sprite was still in a fine spot, and every deck got Bestials as a counter to Tier. Darkwing Blast format was fine. It was the one where Chris LeBlanc won YCS Minneapolis with the Sprite Tier hybrid. I think we saw an overall fine format in those couple weeks that we had those two decks there. To me, it felt like that was where Sprite and Tier should have peaked. This is foreshadowing. They should have peaked at that point in time. And then, for some reason, they released Magnificent Mavens, which brought the Ishizu cards. Now, look, the thing is, the Ishizu cards are completely bonkers and broken. There is no denying that. But on this channel, we look at things a little differently. You guys know, I've taught you guys this, I hope, is that a card being broken, an archetype being broken, whatever, does not necessarily mean that the cards are bad for the game. Right? Because something can be broken, but basically by the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh, both players always have access to the same card pool, right? You both can play the same deck. It's always two-sided, right? Cards can be broken, but if both players have access to it, overall it evens out. So is the theory. It's not always that everything that's broken is also good for the game, but there's like always the dynamic that the term broken basically doesn't really have a meaning in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because there's always a certain power level that the metagame is at. And whether it's 2013 and they release the Dragon Rulers, right? They go above the current power level and that's considered broken, but it doesn't actually do anything other than just lifting the power level up a little bit. Now we play on this level instead of this one, right? Because of Dragon Rulers. And then like whatever else gets released and we go on another. And then like when they released Spiral, it was like the power level was here, Double Helix made Spiral go here. The way it works is like whenever we have a format in Yu-Gi-Oh, everyone always tries to play the deck with the highest power level. So if Ishizu cards didn't exist, we would have continued to play the deck that we thought was the highest power level, was probably tier Sprite or like Sprite or tier. So it doesn't actually matter. As long as both players play the same stuff, the same level of brokenness, to an extent, it's fine. However, it's always a matter of the highest power level deck. Is that deck healthy for the game? It doesn't matter if it's broken or not. If you consider it broken or whatever, it doesn't make a difference. It's just whatever the people choose to play, whatever the best deck is or the best decks are those decks healthy interaction or not? And like some decks have healthy interaction and some decks don't. Like for example, Full Power Goki did not have healthy interaction because whoever went first won the game. Like almost every time. Full Power Spiral was not healthy interaction because whoever pulled off the Spiral combo won the game. Pretty much. Danger FTK, not very healthy because whoever went first won the game. You know what I mean? Like those are examples of decks that have a high power level and are not healthy for the game. And Ishizu tier was better than everything else, but it was not actually unhealthy. I'm gonna throw that out there. Ishizu tier was not unhealthy or is not unhealthy because for the single reason that the Ishizu tier mirror is a good mirror match. The Ishizu tier mirror is a good mirror match where the better player wins a decent amount of the time. Now, that's not the only thing that makes a format good or not. And that's, once again, I'm referring to back when we started talking, when you have to realize that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is being played from different perspectives. From a competitive standpoint, I am fine with Ishizu tier. I have a couple of issues with it though, and that comes to mostly from looking at it from different perspectives, right? Because the people that play Yu-Gi-Oh! Are not just the ones that play high competitive, right? There's also casuals. There's people that go just to locals and want to have a good time, and they just can't play their deck anymore because everyone busts them with Ishizu tier every time, right? And so like my take on Ishizu tier is very simple. Competitively speaking, it was good, but it also had the downside of deck building almost not mattering, which is one of the, like, usually competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a combination of good deck building and good playing of the deck that you built. Ishizu tier doesn't have that. Ishizu tier mills so many cards, is so hyper consistent that like how you build your deck is pretty much irrelevant. Like pick a standard 35 card core, fill it with 5 cards. It's going to be fine. Like deck building wise, it's very hard to get an edge in the Ishizu tier mirror. Almost impossible. I'm saying almost because it's not entirely true, but like still you get the point. So yeah, deck building doesn't matter as much, but playing wise it's very much fine. So overall, I don't mind the Ishizu tier format, but my take on it is that it just should not have lasted as long because the deck is so dominant and it has a couple of mechanics that lock out so many other decks from playing. Because if I look at Ishizu tier, the end board is actually beatable. I could build a ton of decks that just beat the end board of Ishizu tier. That's not the problem. The problem is the Ishizu shufflers. What the hell is Keldo and Modora? What the hell is that? Those cards alone block out so many decks out of the game. You literally can't play so many. And Bestials also are a culprit of this. But like, you want to play Runic? Forget it. You want to play Dark World? You can't. You want to play Eldritch? You cannot. Tritron? Dead. Everything that uses the graveyard, which is basically almost any deck in the game for the last couple of years, cannot beat Ishizu. Despia. Yeah, Despia. Brandon in red. GG. Next. My take on the entire situation was that Ishizu tier was fine for 1 or 2 big events. Like, I enjoyed YCS Dortmund. Just to recap my personal experience, I got 3rd at YCS Dortmund with Ishizu tier. And I had a great time in that event. I felt like it was a very well-rounded tournament. I felt like I lost a lot of dice rolls and it didn't matter. I played a lot of games where I felt like the better player won. I ended up winning because I played better than my opponent. And then in top 4, I lost because I played worse than my opponent, so it was deserved. I could have won if I played better. It was an all-around good tournament experience that Ishizu tier offered there. Now, my problem begins when I'm thinking about the next couple of months, right? Because there's nothing on the horizon that is going to change, right? And that's going to segue into 2023, because this is where 2022 pretty much ends, right? We've had a couple YCSs with Ishizu tier. We've had a ban list that banned Mystic Mine, which pog, but didn't do anything else, so not very happy about it overall. Mystic Mine, Mystic Mine, Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine is on there! Mystic Mine is banned! Mystic Mine is gone! Oh my god, okay. Oh my god, it's done. They did it. This doesn't feel real right now. There's no way. What?
A few moments later.
Okay, there's not a single tier name limited. Where's Pearl Rhino? Where's tier? How do you make a ban list in this format and not hit a single tier limit card? Like, what the hell is going on? The ban list didn't change anything. There is not much else that is going to change anything in the near future. The Ishizu tier deck has already won another YCS after the last ban list. Even with one Herald, doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, because it means that we're not really getting out of this format anytime soon. And even though I think if I was attending another YCS anytime soon, I wouldn't be like mad at the fact that we have to play Ishizu tier again, but I would also not be very excited about it, if you know what I mean. Because at the end of the day, I care about it being a good format, but I also care about it being like fun. Yeah, the tier mirror is intriguing because it's so complicated and kind of cool, but like it gets boring after a while, to me personally. So just to get this to a close, I feel like, first of all, Ishizu cards the cards themselves should have never been designed. But they were, and we had to deal with it. Thankfully, the format that resulted in it, the Ishizu tier format, wasn't as bad as everyone expected it to be. Me included. I think it should have ended with the December ban list. I hope they don't take too long for the next ban list. But I'm almost certain that we're gonna see Ishizu tier take down YCS Sydney next week. There is really no reason to play anything else. I don't know how many other YCSs we have before we get YCS Lyon, which leads us into what's going to happen in 2023. Format-wise, what do we expect? What do I want? We're going to talk about this more, some of these topics, in the early streams in 2023. That is some of the things I have on the agenda for the early streams. There is going to be a set in January called Amazing Defenders, which I have yet to rate the cards on stream. We are going to do that. We are going to look at all the cards, although I have scanned through them a little bit already, and I don't think it changes much. So it's probably going to be, in the grand scheme of things, irrelevant. We're going to make sure that that's the correct assumption, because I have not read all the cards in detail yet. So this might be wrong, but I think that's the vibes I'm getting, is like everyone just kind of ignores Amazing Defenders. We're going to see. And then we have beginning of February. I think that's what everyone is looking forward to at this point, is Photon Hypernova, the next main set. We have looked at Photon Hypernova before. Now, will Photon Hypernova change the game much? And the thing is, I've looked at the cards. I personally think it's gonna have an impact on the format, but first of all, not that much. And second of all, I think not in the right direction. And that's my bigger problem. Kashtira, honestly, is just, to me, Kashtira feels like Flunder, but with special summons and with level 7s instead of level 1s or whatever. Know what I mean? It's like it's just like, instead of Barrier Statue, you're just gonna get your extra deck ripped apart. Like, okay, cool. Either way, you're not really playing the game. And it's just another like shifter, defissure, banish your extra deck kind of stuff. I'm not too hyped about it, I'm not gonna lie. It's more fun to play yourself, I think, than Flunder. But playing against it is almost the same level of frustration, I think, especially going second. So we're gonna see where that goes. At the same time, Tier is also not gonna go anywhere. Tier even gets some stuff in Photon Hypernova. It only changes the deck slightly, I think. For the most part, it's not going to matter. It's still going to be the same thing, right? And so Is Photon Hypernova going to change the game? Yes, but not really in the direction that people want, I think. I think people, me included, want the meta to change in a direction that actually feels different, right? Every once in a while. Every once in a while you want that with tier, because tier has been there long enough. So what needs to happen for the game to change? It's very simple. We need a ban list. And I'm planning to do a big ban list discussion at the beginning of the year, because I truly believe that this next ban list needs to be something else. Whether we get it before or after Hypernova, I don't know. I personally think it's going to be after Photon Hypernova, which is disappointing to a lot of you, me included, but I think that's how it's going to be. I think they're going to wait for Photon Hypernova, gonna let it run for a couple weeks, see how it goes, and then hit us with a ban list after Photon Hypernova. I think that's how it's going to work. And that ban list, yeah, that ban list needs to be a Thanos snap, Kalski. Yeah, you're right. Because I'm gonna tell you how it's going to go. They're gonna have to address Ishizu cards in general, not just tier limits, but also the Ishizu cards themselves have to get hit, because if they only hit tier limits, the Ishizu cards are still going to be a problem after. Tier limit needs a separate hit. Hitting just the Ishizu cards would do nothing other than just like make pure tier still a good deck, which I don't hate pure tier, but at some point it's enough is enough. They need to hit Sprite, because if they hit Ishizu and tier, Sprite would be the best deck by far. In my opinion, they should probably hit Runic. As much as I love Runic, because it's like by definition a grindy archetype that plays a lot of, like, I love Runic, but they should hit it. The engine is very strong. I think they should hit Flunder, because that it's out of the question that Flunder is very strong, even though I don't like the deck, but it's very strong and it should be hit. And its popularity, even in a format where tier is so powerful, Flunder is still being played, shows how much of a problem Flunder really is. Those are the things that need to happen, absolutely, right? And that's even ignoring some standalone cards like Instant Fusion, Scythe, whatever, that should definitely be banned. I'm just going to ignore those for now. We're gonna talk about that more in the big ban list discussion start of the year. But Ishizu, tier, Sprite, Runic, and Flunder should probably be hit on the ban list. And then, just to continue that thought, what happens if they do all that? Preferably also an early hit to Kashtira. Yes, good point in chat right there. Kashtira should also be hit, I think. If they do all that, what happens? If they hit Sprite, Tier, Flunder, and Kashtira hard enough, we just get a shitty national format again, because we still have full power Sword Soul, we still have full power Brave Engine, we still have Scythe, we still have full power like Drytron, pretty much, and then full power Branded. All of that is still here, and I don't want to go back to that. Like I said earlier, that was my least favorite format. I don't want to go back to that. So if they hit all of the decks I mentioned before, they also have to hit Branded, Sword Soul, Drytron, maybe even Tri-Brigade, all that, maybe even Eldritch, all that stuff needs to be hit. And that's why I believe the next ban list needs to be one of the biggest ban lists we've ever seen. And I'm going to be very clear, this is a result of them being, in my opinion, in 2022, very, very lax and very, very late with the ban list. Now, they've always had that problem, but this past year, I think it was particularly obvious how they just hit cards way too late, and they did way too little very often. They decided to hit Mystic Mine literally at the end of the year. They haven't hit Anti-Spell yet. They haven't hit Scythe yet. All of that stuff is going to come back and be a problem at some point. They haven't hit D-Barrier. They haven't hit Branded at all. They didn't hit Sword Soul at all. Now, to be clear, those didn't need a hit because of Sprite and Tier coming out. All of this was fine, but the ban list, the next one, needs to be something else, in my opinion. It needs to be something else. And you know me, I'm always hopeful. I am hopeful in these things, because every once in a while they do get stuff right, you know, like as much as the community complains about stuff, I still believe in the fact that there are still people at Konami that know what they're doing, right? And I have hope for a good and a big ban list. I hope that's going to be the case. I'm looking forward to it. Afterwards, there's really not much else we can predict yet for 2023. I hope we return to the normal schedule in terms of tournaments. There's nothing that looks like we won't. We are going to have YCS Lyon and YCS London, 2 places I'm very hyped. 250th YCS is what's YCS London going to be. The 250th YCS is going to be in 3 separate locations. I think there's one in Las Vegas, there's one in London, and there's going to be one in Bogota, provided I get a ticket. I don't know how fast they'll sell out, but I will be going to YCS London. And then after that, we're going to have national season Euros. For me personally, this is now something that applies to me, is currently it's looking very good for me to make it into the World Championship playoff. The way it works currently, just in case you're not familiar with it, you collect points with regionals and YCSs, and there's going to be a playoff at the European Championship with the top 16 point earners from this season and the top 16 point earners from the 2020 season. So overall, it's going to be 32 people for 3 slots at the World Championship, which is a lot harder than it was in 2017, 2018, and 2019, which were the ones that I qualified for Worlds via points. It's going to be harder because 32 people playoff for 3 slots, but because of my performance at a couple of regionals and YCS Utrecht and YCS Dortmund, I think I'm currently first in points by a decent amount. I'll probably make it into top 16 if not everything goes terribly wrong. So I'm gonna try and qualify for Worlds. Of course I'm gonna try. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully I can make it, but chances aren't as high in a 32 player playoff for 3 slots, but that's something I'm looking forward to. We will see. And then as far as content creation goes, I have been doing a lot in this year, but I think I can definitely do more. I plan on making a lot of stuff happen, both on Twitch and on YouTube. I want to look into a lot of different ways of creating content, because I'm aware that currently the way we produce content on the YouTube channel, I'm saying we because it's mostly also the work of the editor, not just myself. I don't edit myself, which Tylo in chat, shout out. Currently, it's mostly stuff that we do on stream that I make specifically for YouTube, or we take highlights from the stream, put it on YouTube, which I still think is good content, but I still think there's like room for improvement on some of it. Like, for example, I wanted to start like scripting actual stuff, like how to build a side deck or whatever is a script that I'm currently working on, or like stuff like that. A lot of things that I plan on improving about the YouTube channel, as well as the Twitch stream, right? You guys still don't have, which I'm very sorry about, but I just haven't had the time for it yet. It frustrates me as well, but I just haven't had the time yet. I don't have like sub badges yet. You still don't have the full set of emotes that I can upload. You still don't have like so much stuff, right? All that stuff I want to improve on Twitch. And I mean, it's just like the entire journey of getting into content creation full time has just kind of been very fast, right? I need time to get used to some of that stuff, right? Because I'm just like, I'm here, I'm live streaming, but there's a lot of stuff that I need to get used to on how it works and what's good and what not. Also, like, I want to explore all kinds of things, like hosting tournaments, right? Hosting tournaments for followers and subscribers, and maybe find sponsors that provide like awesome pricing for it, and then I can commentate it or whatever, right? All that good stuff. Or like regular series for YouTube that we can always film on stream. I've been brainstorming ideas, but at the same time, I don't want those to be kind of like copies of series that already exist, if you know what I mean. Like, I really want it to be original. I want it to be something else. My biggest hurdle for it, I also want it to be educational. That's one of my main things with stuff like that, is I always try to be educational about the game, because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge that I can give to viewers, right? Like, and I also just want to upload more, right? I just want to upload more in general. I will see how much we can do. The entire YouTube thing right now is like basically I just stream, and then whenever something happens, we just make a YouTube video out of it. Or like when there's like an external topic, like a YCS happens or a regional happens, I film a deck profile. Or when there's a ban list, we film a reaction to that or whatever, right? But it's like I want to have more planned content, scheduled content, scripted videos, like maybe 3 or 4 videos a week. We'll see. Just to get this to a close, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this year, my first year in content creation, also my first year back to IRL tournaments, also my first year, of course, as it was everyone's first year of playing Master Duel. I enjoyed all of it. I enjoyed all the parts of the journey, especially here on Twitch and on YouTube. For me personally, the year 2022, I will always look back as probably one of the best years in my life because it was the year where I finished uni. I started with this job that I now love to do. And I also, on top of that, won a YCS. I got engaged, all the goods. It was a, in all sense of the word, a perfect year for me personally. And part of that is because of the people on Twitch, because of you guys, because of the people that watch me. I'm not the best person with showing emotions and such, but I am truly grateful for everyone who has been enjoying the streams, whether you were here since today or since day one or since somewhere along the way. It doesn't matter. I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate all the support that I have received, because I do not take for granted. I know, I am aware of how hard it is to become a streamer with good numbers on Twitch. I've heard tons about, you know, the amount of work and the amount of luck that it takes to become a big streamer. And while I am obviously aiming to become bigger than I am right now, I'm very happy with what I've achieved, or what we've achieved as a community in 2022, and the current numbers we've been hitting, or also the numbers we've been hitting with YCS watch parties and whatnot, and even the numbers we've hit when I streamed freaking Pokemon, which is something that I'm really not like known for or whatever. Like the amount of people that were here when I played Pokemon, even though they were not here for my competitive advice or whatever, just because they were enjoying the vibes, right? It's like, I feel really honored to have had the year of 2022 that I had. Except for the Darkwing Blast box opening. We don't talk about that one. This set is cool. Call us Schmidtlings? Okay. I'm very thankful for every single one of you who calls themselves a proud Schmidtling. There you go. Okay, Pog, without further ado, I think that is all from me. I truly hope all of you also had a good 2022. I hope you have a great start into the year 2023, and thank you for watching.